All right, for more on this Argos win, we're joined by TSN football insider Dave Naylor. Dave, you've been talking about Vernon Adams Jr. a lot on Twitter. I follow you on Twitter, as we all do, and you've been, something dropped there. And, you know, it makes sense. I mean, you come in, you're filling Nathan Rourke's shoes. He had a terrific season last year. It looked like Vernon had figured it out. Only 2 interceptions going into this game. What happened on Monday night?
It's hard to figure out. It feels like we've been evaluating Vernon Adams as a quarterback forever. I mean, this is a guy who came into this league in 2016, you know, and you follow his career. It's been, you know, traded, released, converted to receiver, released, backing up. And this seemed like the perfect situation for him because he got there late last season, so he had the entire offseason. You know, he's 30 years old now. He's a West Coast guy. It all kind of was fitting. And then you watch the first 3 games. Look, if you told me at the start of the game, said, one of these guys is going to throw 6 picks tonight. Now, I'm a big believer in Chad Kelly, but I would have said Chad Kelly because it's his 4th CFL start.
Right.
And he's playing a defense that had been playing at a historic pace the first 3 weeks of the season. And you know, we're sitting with Matt Dunnigan and Milt Stegall watching these interceptions tonight. And I would say of the 6, you know, 3 or 4 of them are just like your eyes pop out because it's middle of the field, throwing deep to the middle of the field and just being picked off and hard to figure out what he's seeing. I think the next game for Vernon Adams is a really big one. And here's why. Because his entire career has been sort of forward, 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 back. Forward, 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 back. Even in Montreal. Like you think, he had established himself in Montreal. Trevor Harris shows up there. He's just the backup guy. Next thing you know, Trevor Harris is started because Vernon has a bad game or 2. So if he's going to break that pattern, now's the time to do it. But I mean, when he threw that 6th pick and he comes out of the game and just the look on his face, like he just looked lost. And that's where they got to get his focus back.
Let's talk about Chad Kelly. You mentioned it. Once again, proving that he absolutely deserves this starter's role. And more than that, he's becoming one of the best players in the league. And he does it, as you mentioned, against maybe the league's best defense.
Well, sometimes, you know, the hype is worth and I'm talking Chad Kelly hype. I was hearing Chad Kelly hype before he was ever in the CFL. It was like, boy, here's a guy who's, you know, on the bubble in the NFL. If he ever comes up here, this game, he can do some magical things. You know, he wanted to play in Toronto. That's why Edmonton traded his rights here. And then last year when he goes in the 4th quarter of the Grey Cup, it's like, people, you know, all of a sudden eyes open. I said, that's what people are talking about. I know it's half a quarter of football, but it's the Grey Cup and they're behind and he brought them back. Still, going into this season, a lot of questions. I think 3 games in, we can say the Toronto Argonauts have found their quarterback of the present and hopefully the future. And it's not just what Chad Kelly does, because he does make some magical plays. I mean, you can see when he starts moving the ball, when he starts running with his feet, you can see the defense kind of freeze because they don't know what he's going to do because he's so good at throwing on the run, and he will do things that quarterbacks are taught not to do, like throw across your body and get away with it, as he did a couple times tonight, including a touchdown. But that's the magic and sort of where he elevates the team around him, that he can do those things. The other thing about it is, for a guy, again, 4th start, he doesn't make a lot of bad decisions.
No,
right?
it's true.
And that's, at this point of his career, you would be willing to live with some of that because you're like, okay, he's a dynamic player. He can make these plays with his feet. He can run. We'll live with some of that. There's not, I mean, 0 interceptions tonight. You know, and he threw a pick 6 last week against Edmonton, and I know our guys in the panel were really focused on, okay, how does he bounce back from that? Because this is the first really bad thing he's had happen as a starting quarterback. You know, he just carried on. So I think the Toronto Argonauts are feeling very good about Chad Kelly. Chad Kelly's looking like he's having a ton of fun, and he seems to have all those dynamics you want in a quarterback leader. You look at him on the sideline. You look at him in the huddle. You look at the way he plays when he's got to do short yardage, or and they might want to use him on short yardage a little more as they reinserted him into that role late in the game. But I think there's a lot of reason for the Toronto Argonaut fans to be very excited about Chad Kelly because he's not only a winner, but he brings you out of your seat as he does it, too.
And he seems to love to be here. And the Argos actually on a bye next week. You mentioned such an important game for Vernon Adams and the Lions. They'll host Montreal, one of Vernon's old teams. That'll be next Sunday. Dave, thanks for this. This was fun.
Thank you.